Hello everybody and welcome to this video teaching you how to play the game of QUACKS. And you have got such a treat in store for you. I love this game. QUACKS is all about brewing potions, and you are going to be playing the odds, pushing your luck, and trying not to explode. In a round of QUACKS, players are going to be reaching into their private personal pouch and pulling ingredients one after another to try and concoct the most high-scoring brew. Tokens with 1s go 1 space forward. Tokens with 2s go 2 spaces forward as you spiral outward, making more and more money. But the ingredients you're buying each round have a mind of their own, with wild effects that make each round of QUACKS completely different. And whether you fill your cauldron with spiders or mandrake root or ghosts, well, that's completely up to you. But everyone's pouch also contains these hateful white boomberry tokens. And if you push your luck too far and draw boomberries that add up to over 7, your cauldron explodes. And then everyone laughs at you. But that's okay, because maybe they then explode almost immediately afterwards. I'm going to teach you how this gorgeous game works. But first, we're going to figure out which version you have in front of you. Because you might have the normal edition of QUACKS, you might have the deluxe edition, or you might have the all-in edition. So the normal edition and the deluxe edition are the same game. The deluxe edition just has these wicked Bakelite style pieces, which we're going to be using in this video because I just want to touch them. I want to spend time with them. I want more of them in my life. And then the all-in edition is basically the deluxe version, but with some extra optional expansions that I'll be teaching at the end of this video. Expansions to make your QUACKS experience bigger, weirder, more strategic, and all around more quacktacular. But first, I'm just going to teach you all how to set up and play and enjoy the base game of QUACKS. So let's begin with how you set this game up. Put the scoreboard in the middle of the table and put the little flame marker on the number 1 to show you're beginning the first round of the game. Place the shuffled fortune teller deck face down next to the scoreboard, but if you've got the all-in edition, be sure to remove the cards with the little alchemist and witch icons. Pick a set of ingredient books to use in the game and make sure they each have the same number of bookmarks. For your first game, you want to use the books with 1 bookmark. A note here, pumpkins don't have any bookmarks, they're the same in every game. You're also going to take the moth book and flip it over, depending on whether you're playing with 3 or 4 players, or if you're playing with just 2 players. And if you've got the all-in edition of QUACKS and you're playing with ingredient books set 5 and 6, there are also new moth books for you to use. Also, if you've got the all-in edition and you're not playing with either the Alchemists or the Witch expansions, take all those Locoweed tokens and the Locoweed books and get them out of here. You're not going to be using them. Next, sort the ingredient tokens you've got into 3 piles of 1s, 2s, and then anything higher. The colors will be mixed, but I promise it's easier and faster to find tokens this way. Embrace the chaos. And for your own sanity, please store the tokens this way. Next up, each one of you is going to set up your own private, personal cauldron. Take a cauldron board and scoring marker of your chosen color, plus a bag. The cauldron should be on the side showing the book in the corner and not the test tubes. Next, everyone is going to put their scoring marker next to the 1 victory point space of the scoreboard track with the player symbol face up. The 50 on the other side is if you go all the way around the scoring track and then you're at 51, 52, 53. Next, everyone puts their droplet marker on the first space at the very center of their cauldron. Everyone puts their cute little rat marker in their bowl. Everyone puts their flask full side up on their silver tray. Everyone puts 1 shiny ruby to the left of their cauldron. And finally, everyone puts the exact same 9 ingredients into their bag. 4 unlikable 1 boomberry tokens, 2 nasty 2 boomberry tokens, 1 absolutely loathsome 3 boomberry token, 1 value 1 pumpkin, and 1 value 1 spider. And then look at you guys, you're good to go. You're ready to rock. This is exciting. So the first thing you're going to do in the first round of QUACKS is the same thing you're going to do at the beginning of every round of QUACKS, and that is you're going to get your fortunes told. Pick a player among all of you to be the start player and hand them the fortune teller deck. They are then going to draw a card and see what special effect happens this round. Purple cards have an effect that happens immediately and can be discarded afterwards, while blue cards have effects that last further into the round, so keep those somewhere visible on the table. And then you're ready to begin brewing your first potion by reaching into your bag and drawing a token at random. And QUACKS is a bit interesting in the board game world because there are no turns at all. Everyone is going to be playing in their own time at their own speed. But there's one very important rule I have to teach you as I'm talking about all this bag business, and that is that in the game of QUACKS, no one is ever allowed to look into their bag, ever. I don't mean like when you're reaching in and drawing them. I mean when a round is over and you're like, what tokens did I put in my bag? You're not allowed to know that. You should remember it or guess or not care. So each of you, when you're ready to begin, will reach into your bag, draw a token and place it on your board. Starting from your droplet, if you draw a 1, you're going to place that on the next available space from your board. If you draw a 2, you're going to place that on the next available space 2 along on your board. You can already see how this works. If later on in the game you draw a 4, you're going to place it on the next available space 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces along on your board. And this is the game. In your own time, everybody is going to keep reaching into the bag, drawing a token at random, placing it on the board. Reach in, draw a token, place it on your board. But in addition to moving your token along, ingredients have other effects. Blue skulls, red toadstools, and yellow mandrakes all have effects that take place immediately, and what that effect is written right there on the book. Whereas green spiders, purple ghosts, and black moths all have an effect that takes place at the end of the round when you elect to stop brewing your potion or when it explodes. If your table of players ever has any questions about specifically how any of these ingredients work, you will find a nice detailed explanation waiting for you at the back of the manual. But remember that if anything in QUACKS ever says you can do something, it's a choice. You may choose to do it or you may choose not to do it. And if you've got an ingredient that offers different powers at different values of that ingredient, you can always choose to use a lower level. So as you're playing this central push your luck game of QUACKS where you're drawing a token and placing it and drawing a token and placing it, the question facing you is deciding when or if you're gonna stop. And let me be clear, you're not gonna wanna stop. You're gonna have a deep emotional need to see what comes out of your bag next. You didn't pay your hard-earned money for this game to stop playing it. But here's the problem. Do you remember those white boomberry tokens that you put in your bag at the beginning? If you draw a token and the total value of all the white boomberry tokens in your cauldron is ever above 7, your cauldron explodes. When that happens, you have to stop. Also, this should be stated the obvious, but a player is not allowed to draw a token, realize it's going to make them explode, and then stop. That's just cheating. And importantly, in QUACKS, it is easy to cheat because no one's watching you. Everyone's playing independently. So, be honest. Basically, exploding is bad. I'll remind you of the exact penalty later in this video, but everyone who stops drawing from their bag at some point and goes, you know what? I'm done. I'm not pushing my luck any further. Those players are going to get victory points and money to spend on new ingredients in the round, while everyone who exploded has to decide between one of those things. But don't worry, in your quest to not explode, you do have a secret weapon. You see this flask? When you draw a boomberry token, you can immediately make the choice to pour this flask into your cauldron by flipping it, and what that does is it allows you to take your boomberry token and pop it back in your bag. But you're not allowed to do this if the token you just drew would cause you to explode. This is only allowed to happen if you draw a token. You're not going to explode, but it does push you closer to it, and then you go, oh, okay, I'm going to use my flask. Let's leave that flask empty on the table. I'm going to teach you how to refill your flask later. Once everybody around the table has either decided to stop drawing tokens and put their bag on the table in front of them, or has exploded, you're going to go through QUACKS' fabulous 7-step reward program. Does 7 steps sound like a lot? Don't worry, they've written it down for you. The player who did the best that round, which is to say the player who moved the tokens furthest around the spiral that round, gets the best reward in QUACKS. They get to roll the die. This die has 6 different faces, showing 6 different fabulous rewards, some more fabulous than others. And the player who did the best is going to roll it and see what they get. If multiple players did equally well that round, advancing the same distance around their spirals, they all get to roll the die. You can get a victory point. You can get 2 victory points. You can get a ruby. You can move your droplet 1 space forward, giving you a head start at the beginning of each round, or you can get a pumpkin. I guess there are 5 different results, not 6. I was wrong. Once you've all recovered from the unimaginable drama and envy of the dice, you're going to move on to the next space. You're going to trigger the effects of the spiders and ghosts and moths in everyone's potions. They all have different benefits. Then you're going to see who amongst you gets a ruby. Now, let me be very clear about this. The rewards you get when you brewed your potion in QUACKS is the first available visible space. So you can see in this example, you see this space that's next up? Those are my rewards. And you can see the ruby there? See the little red ruby? There it is. That means I get a ruby. Everyone whose scoring space shows a ruby gets a ruby. I will explain what rubies are for in just a moment, but for now, just enjoy them because they're nice and pretty and you've got a ruby and that should be its own reward. Next up, everyone gets their big reward for the round, which is your score. The players who didn't explode are going to get a number of victory points equal to the smaller number on their scoring space, and then an amount of money to buy new ingredients, which is the big number on the scoring space. And those victory points you get, this is nice and simple. You're going to take your scoring marker and move it that many spaces along on this victory point track. But those of you who exploded have to decide here between either getting your victory points or getting your money for ingredients. And by the way, at the start of the game, this isn't that bad. You're only losing out on 1 or 2 experience points. Go for the ingredients. Next up on the reward program, you're going to spend your hard-earned money. You're going to go shopping. So, beginning with the star player, who remember is the player with the fortune teller deck in front of them, players are going to take turns going clockwise around the table, buying 1 or 2 ingredients. But if you buy 2, they can't be the same color. And this is how you get access to higher numbered ingredients with different effects. You can see here that different ingredient tokens with different numbers cost different amounts. I'll just point out a couple of things here. There are fixed numbers of ingredient tokens in QUACKS. So if you want to buy a number 2 toadstool and there are no number 2 toadstools left, they're gone, all right? And you know what else doesn't stick around in QUACKS? Your money. Whatever money you've got available to spend in a round, you're going to spend it and you don't get to keep the rest. It is gone. But whatever ingredient tokens you choose to buy, pop those bad boys into your bag for future rounds, and if you're me, immediately forget what you put in there. Next up on our reward program, spending rubies. I told you I was going to tell you about them rubies. At this point, everyone around the table can spend their rubies doing 1 or 2 things. At a cost of 2 rubies, you can glug, 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 fill your flask back up. You can also spend, for a price of 2 rubies, moving your droplet 1 space further along your spiral, giving you that head start in future rounds. You can also buy these effects multiple times. So if you had 6 rubies, you could refill your flask and move your droplet along twice. Finally, it's time for rats. Rats are going to be helping out the players that are doing worse. So the way that rats work is each player at this point counts up the number of rat tails between their scoring token and the token of the player in first place. And then you're going to reach into your bowl with that cute little rat token and you're going to move it that many spaces in front of your droplet marker. That is going to be your starting point for next round. And this number fluctuates, right? If, let's say, the next round you're a little closer to the lead player, maybe you get a bit less help from rats. Or if the lead player does super duper well, you're going to get more help from rats. And of course, the player in the lead never gets any help from rats. And that is a round of QUACKS. The next thing you have to do is set up the next round. You are going to take this gorgeous little flame marker and move it onto the next number, and sometimes that means something happens. In the second round of the game, mandrake roots become available for purchase. You can't buy them before round 2. In the third round of the game, ghosts become available for purchase. How is it that we're putting ghosts into potions? Stop asking silly questions. And then, I love this, in the 6th round of the game, when everyone's starting to get cocky, everyone has to add 1 more boomberry token to their bag. And then the player with the fortune teller deck is going to grab that deck and hand it to the next player clockwise around the table. They're going to be the start player, they're going to read the fortune, and they're going to get their first pick during the ingredient shopping phase. So that is how you play QUACKS. You folks are practically at this point fully trained alchemists. I just need to teach you what happens in the 9th and final round of the game. So because the 9th round should feel like the biggest round, right? There's the most points available. There's a little bit of special ceremony that happens on the 9th round. So first off, in the final round of the game, there's an optional rule, but I don't think it's optional. I think it's mandatory. If things are particularly tense, if the game is a bit close, here's something special you can do to give the game a bit more theater. Everyone can pull from their bags simultaneously. So you go 3, 2, 1, bam! And then you all reveal at the same time. You all place the token, you reach back in, 3, 2, 1, bam! And then here's the cool part. If a player decides they want to stop drawing ingredients from their bag because they don't want to blow up, they do this by going 3, 2, 1, bam! And they reveal an empty hand. So this is so cool. You've got 2 players, both of which are afraid they're going to blow up, both of which really want to beat the other person. 3, 2, 1, bam. Maybe they both reveal no tokens. Maybe they both reveal tokens. Maybe they both blow up and everyone else laughs. I love this game. And then in the final round of the game, as you go through the reward track, it works a little bit differently because, of course, it doesn't matter what you put in your bag anymore. So in the shopping phase, every 5 money you earn can be turned into 1 victory point. And then immediately after that, every 2 rubies you've got can be spent buying 1 more victory point. And that is your game of quacks. The player who wins is the player who got furthest along on the victory point track. If there's a tie, it's the player who got furthest along in their cauldron spiral in the final round of the game. And if that's a tie, the manual says it's a tie. Oh, and if you're ever so talented or lucky as to reach or even exceed the last space in your cauldron, 33, just put your final token there, stop drawing, don't go any further, and feel smug. And that is how you play the game of quacks. You folks are good to go, but it might not be how you play your next game of quacks, because there are some cool things you can do here to make your next game of quacks play differently. One thing you can do, you can play with a different set of book tiles. So bam, 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 bam. You are now playing a completely different game. But also, there is a secret other side to your player boards. This is the advanced side of your player board. Let's pop your flask in there, pop your droplet in there, but then you are going to grab the second droplet token in the box and you're going to put it on the far left of this test tube track. In this slightly more advanced game of quacks, which I would really encourage you to only play once you've tried the basic game, every time you get the chance to move your droplet token, whether it's by rolling that result on a dice or spending 2 rubies or some wacky effect from an ingredient, you can choose which of your droplet tokens you move. So you can move the standard one around your spiral, giving you a head start each round, or you can slide this droplet token to the right, and every time you move into a new test tube, you pick up that reward. And these rewards start small, but if you drag this token far enough, you get some wild prizes. So that is everything you folks need to know if you own the base game of quacks. But what about you indulgent mofos, oh my goodness, who have the all-in edition? Let's talk about those expansions that you can bring into your game. So the all-in edition of Quacks has 2 kind of named expansions. There's the Witches and then there's the Alchemists. But that's not actually all you get. For a lot of people, the coolest thing you get in the all-in edition of Quacks is components for a 5th player to sit at the table. And that's actually particularly cool in this game because it's all simultaneous. So even though you're adding an extra player, you're not actually making the game last any longer. Very cool. Another thing you get is you no longer just have 4 different sets of ingredient books. You now have 5, 6. That's cool. Also, and I think this is my favorite expansion, maybe just because I really like these cool tokens, whether you play with the Alchemists or the Witches, you're encouraged to bring in Loco Weed, a brand new kind of ingredient where even though there's 6 different things it can do, it doesn't have any bookmarks along the bottom because you can play with any Loco Weed with any ingredient set. So the first thing you do, whether you're playing with the Alchemist or the Witches, is you are going to randomly decide on or choose a Loco Weed effect and add the new Loco Weed tiles in there. And then let's talk about the Witches first. So let's talk about how you set up the Witches. The Witches comes with 4 different Witches in each of bronze, silver, and gold, and you are going to randomly pick one of each to put into your game. And then the rest go back in the box. Then each player is going to receive 3 witch pennies, which is a lovely pair of words, in bronze, silver, and gold. Then everyone gets another nice pairing of words. You all get an overflow bowl. You are going to take this in your color and you are going to, look at this, look how satisfying this is. Bam! You're going to socket it onto the side of your cauldron. And that is because the Witches is an expansion that is all about racking up the highest scores imaginable. If you want more quacks in your quacks, if you want more combo potential, this is the expansion for you. The final thing you do in setup is you are going to grab the 3 fortune teller cards with the little witch hat in the corner, and these cards are going to get shuffled in to the fortune teller deck. And with that completed, you are ready to play the witches, but you need to learn how to play. Don't worry, I'm going to teach you how to do that. That's what I'm here for. So the witches are super duper simple. Each witch on a tile sat in the middle of the table has a special power, and every player gets to visit each of them once. So let's say I want to use the bronze witch. I'm going to grab my bronze witch penny. I'm going to get it out of here, and then I'm going to use that witch's power. But for players who don't use their witch pennies during the game, at the end of a game of Quacks, each witch penny you didn't spend is worth 2 victory points. Oh, and if you're ever confused about a witch's power, just like the ingredient books, there are explanations of all of them at the back of the manual. So that's all you need to know about the witches, which is, it turns out, very user-friendly. Let's talk about those overflow bowls. So those bowls are there to help the annoying try-hard players who manage to reach the final space on their board. If a player reaches that space, they put the token on the 33 space. If that ingredient would do something to the next ingredient you draw, ignore it, that no longer happens. Instead, when players draw additional tokens from their bag, pile them up in the overflow bowl. To be clear, white boomberry tokens you draw that go into the bowl still cause your cauldron to explode. But for all other tokens, they are effectively colorless in that they don't count for the black moth effects or essence calculation if you're playing the Alchemist expansion. And what those tokens do, you get your 15 victory points and 35 money for reaching the final space as in normal Quacks, but you also get half of the printed value of all the tokens in the overflow bowl rounded down as victory points. And if multiple players reach the overflow bowl, they're all considered tied for the purposes of getting to roll the bonus die. Assuming they haven't exploded, obviously. So that is the Witches expansion. Next, let's talk about the Alchemists. Get out of here, ladies. So when you play the Alchemists, you're going to get Loco Weed in your game, same as with the Witches. You're also going to grab the 3 fortune teller cards with the alchemy symbol on. You're going to shuffle them into the fortune deck. And then everyone's going to begin some DIY on their cauldron. So check this out. This is ridiculous. Everyone is going to grab a beaker board in their color. Bam! And they're going to socket it onto the top there. You're going to grab a little bubbly essence marker in their color. Put that on the 0. And then you are going to grab a set of 4 essence cards in your color. Then you're going to grab 8 of these patient tiles with just extremely funny diseases and the matching little circular tokens showing their faces. You are then going to deposit them into an empty bag and draw 3 at random. These patients with very funny diseases are the people that each player has the option of treating during the game. And then everyone decides which patient they are going to choose to treat. And this is cool. This is a nice bit of asymmetry at the start of a game of Quacks. So everyone's engine looks a little bit different. Let's imagine I choose to treat Warping Cough during game setup. I'm going to grab my essence card that says that and socket it onto my board. Like so. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So here's how you play the Alchemists. It's a little more crunchy than the Witches. It puts you under a bit more pressure when you're deciding which ingredients you want to buy and gives you this little additional puzzle that all the players are going to be thinking about. So when you're playing with the Alchemists, this beaker board comes into play directly between everyone finishing brewing their potions or exploding, and when you start the reward procedure and rolling the bonus dice. That's when the beaker board gets into play. So basically, how far you drive your little bubble token up this track is going to determine what rewards you get, but how far you drive it, well, that's a little tricky. First, you add up how many different token colors you have in your cauldron that round, not counting white. Whatever that number is, move your essence marker to that space on the beaker. Then, if the total value of Boomberry tokens in your cauldron is exactly 7, if you pushed your luck right up to the limit, you move the bubble an extra space. And finally, if the player to your left or right exploded, you get to move an extra space. If they both exploded, you get to move 2 extra spaces. Although in a 2-player game, this means you will only ever be moving 1 extra space. And this is a jazzy little bit of game design. Everyone wants to push their luck a bit further, and everyone's more invested in their neighbors going bust. Then, depending on what space you've got to, you simply follow that tube and see what you've won. If you see a victory point symbol, immediately move your point marker forward by that number of points. If you see a rat token, move your rat marker an extra space forward at the end of this round. But also, every patient you might choose to treat works a little bit differently. Points and rat tails are benefits you get in addition to the bonus that your patient gives you. Also, if the test tube you follow leads to an oval glass, your patient card will tell you what to do with what's indicated in that glass. Finally, 2 important things here. You can always move your bubbly token to a lower space before taking your reward, so you've got some choice there. Also, once you're done taking your reward, don't immediately reset your bubble token back to 0 because some patients have some effects that might refer to the place that it's on. So just leave it there and only reset it to 0 when you need to move it up again next round when you're done brewing your potion. The final thing to know about the alchemists is in the last round, round 9 of Quacks, you are going to distill essence as normal, but you're not going to take the rewards on your patient card. You are simply going to get 1 victory points for each space that you move. Now, I know what some of the certified freaks out there are wondering. Can I combine the alchemists and the witches? Well, yes, you can. Not only can you combine both of these expansions, in this game, you can actually pick and choose the expansions you want. So you might play witches without the overflow ball for some reason, or you might play with everything except for the loco weed. Why would you do that? I don't know. I'm just telling you, you can concoct your very own version of Quacks with the stuff you like, with none of the stuff you don't. That's it. We've done it, you guys. We've learned all the rules for Quacks and all the rules for the expansions in the All-In edition. My work here is done, but you guys, your work is just beginning. You're about to play a game of Quacks, and you're going to have a great time because this isn't just a fantastic piece of board game design. I can't let you go without giving a shout out to the artist of the new edition, Ryogo Toyoda, who did this lovely, bubbly, like 3D rendered art that is so characterful, and I love it to pieces. He did such an amazing job. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. And remember, just don't explode. It's really simple. It's just a game of not exploding. What could be easier? Good luck.